Welcome to Present Poetry, a podcast where we sit back, relax, and enjoy some poets of the past and present. I'm your host, Erin Crittenden, and before we get started on this week's episode, I want to remind you that all of the material used in this podcast is either public domain or used with permission from the author or the author's estate. It's a fun time for all ages, so sit back, relax, and get ready to hear this week's featured poet. This week's featured poet is Lexie Kunz. Lexie R. Kunz is a graduate of Utah State University with degrees in English and Communication Disorders. Lexie has been reading and daydreaming stories since she was 5 years old and enjoys writing poetry and fiction. Some of her work has even been published in Edify Fiction, Fez Magazine, and Peacock Journal. We will be reading a few of her poems that she submitted through the form at presentpoetry.com. This poem is called Imaginary Friend. At 10, my mom had auburn hair and eyes. Her irises were brown and flecked with red. So I, being shy and world-weary, did fairy tale myself a friend in her image to rise from my imagination so we could make castles out of daffodils. This poem is called Animism. I worried Barbie missed me when I left, her plastic smile melting to a frown. And when my mom replaced her car, I hoped it didn't feel we'd kicked it out. And when I lost my purple monster plush, its pre-recorded voice let out shrill cries. I hid beneath my princess blanket's fluff, too guilty to apologize. This poem is called My 1-Year-Old Meets the Grim Reaper. I spoke to death, who gestured with cadaverous hands, and you cried to learn the existence of monsters, too young to understand that real demons aren't mannequins in party stores. Real hellions don't have chunky skulls with voids for eyes. They're more of a challenge to recognize. This poem is called The Jilted Oread. Her eyes were mountain moss, her hair was crystal gloss, a nymph whose love was bees, whose humming filled the trees. She conducted every buzz, and yet one day was stung. She'd opened her chest and showed them her heart, and they'd claimed it, only to put it back in the wrong spot. This poem is called Alice Underground. Puffed sleeves and corsets, playing cards and crumpets, checkered print and rose tea are found underground. In tunnels of fragmented books in London, I watched Alice wander as the Mad Hatter stomped teacups with callous clatter. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.